Hi, my name is Michael Williams, and today I'm going to be walking you through a general overview of Casper. Casper is an Excel file that ties together a call sheet, production report, Exhibit G, and hot cost report, which we generally hope will make your job a much easier place. I'm going to start by giving you some general notes on just getting started with Casper. Then we're going to go through a workflow for how to use it day to day, and then general tips for each one of the different documents so that you can understand things to do, things not to do, and it'll help you in your daily operation. When you first launch Casper, you're going to see this screen, which is the instruction screen. I'm using the sample file that comes with Casper, which already has all the data imported, it's all filled in, which will give you a good sense of what it looks like when it's all up and working. Let me run you through the tabs real quick. The tabs are located here at the bottom, and each one of these is a different worksheet in this Excel workbook. First one is instructions, which you're looking at. The next one is globals, and this is where you're going to put in all of your global data that will talk to each one of the different worksheets. For instance, this is where you put in your shoot day. In this case, it's day 12. You can also put in your header information for your call sheets and production reports, and some different data for hot cost globals. There is, of course, the front of the call sheet. There is the back of the call sheet. There's the front of the production report, the back of the production report, the Exhibit G, and then three different tabs. This one is the actual breakdown information you would bring in from Movie Magic or type in by hand if you want. Your cast information about the shoot days and what days on the calendar that they take place on. And then there's the hot cost report and the hot cost details, which is all of the underlying data that makes the hot cost report work. And we'll get to that a little bit later. So let me show you the big thing that Casper can do so that you understand why we created Casper. One of the problems that we all have is we need to keep retyping the same data that we've already typed over and over again. And that's no way to do business. So what we decided was we were going to create something so that you would just create your breakdown, you would import it through a process we created, and then you'd be able to do something like this. I'm going to go ahead and delete the scenes here, just hitting the delete key, and then let me show you what this actually looks like when it's in action here. I'm typing a call sheet, and I'm going to shoot scene 5, scene 6, scene 8, scene 10, all without having to type in all the rest of this information. It's automatically totaled for you. All of this is accurate to the breakdown that is here in this breakdown tab. And all of the rest of this works just like that. And once you've typed something in, you really don't need to retype it. Also, what we did is we set all these different cells that are light yellow with blue text. Those are the areas where you can safely type and you know you're not going to mess anything up. Honestly, some of the formulas here, you can see here's one of the formulas, are quite complicated. And you can feel free to type in them and change them all around and manually type in data as needed. But if you want them to work automatically, you want to have a visual cue to stay away from them. And so what we did is we made all the things that you want to stay away from white and all the things that you can feel free to type in light yellow with blue text. The reason we chose those colors was because when you print this or copy it on the set copier, the light yellow and blue text will copy as just black and white. Also, there's a lot of extra space that we've built into Casper in the hidden rows. So if you don't know how to do this already in Excel, this is just a little Excel trick, but you can hide and unhide rows of data in Excel. You can tell when you're running the Mac version of Excel that there's hidden data between, in this case, rows 29 and 70 because they are blue. You just right click on it and you will click unhide. And you can see all of a sudden that there is plenty more space to type all of your different scene numbers that had previously been hidden. I'm going to go ahead and undo just by doing a Command Z to reset that back down to its regular size. And you'll see that throughout Casper, there are just tons of these little blue areas where you can make Casper bigger if you need more room. It's worth noting also that on PCs, this blue text does not exist. The PC version of Excel does not use that visual cue, only the Mac version. The only way you can tell on the PC is that there's obviously skips in numbers between 29 and 70. And the other big thing that we did is we created a number of formula names to make things a lot easier. So for instance, if you need to refer to the call time, you don't need to refer to this cell by calling back to, sum of M8. If you need to refer to the call time, you can just type in equals CALL, call, and you'll be able to get the call time. So for instance, this cell, which is referring to this actor's call time, you can see right here is just equals call. And we've also created names for each amount of time that you would need to measure before or after a call time. So this call time at 6:12 a.m. is call minus time 048, which is 48 minutes, which will give you 48 minutes before call. This one is call plus time 100, which is 1 hour, 100, will give you 1 hour after call. There are enough of these time names to give you a total of 6 hours of time. So anything from 6 minutes all the way up to 6 hours has been named already for you in Casper. There's also names for instance, background count. There's a whole slew of these things, and they're listed both in the instructions tab and also in the manual. They're pretty easy to figure out, and once you get a hang of it, you pretty much just do it by second nature. And there's one last thing here that I want to show you that I think you're really going to like. And to show you this, I'm actually going to hide the actors section here. Let me just right click, and we're going to do hide. And that way you'll be able to see the scene numbers and the special instructions by department sections together on one screen here. Let me go ahead and delete these again. And watch the lower right-hand corner of your screen here, props, hair, makeup, all this stuff here, as I type the scene numbers. Let's put back in 5, 6, 8, and 10. And notice that as I do that, as the scene numbers all go in, the special instructions by department populate themselves. They're reading the data from the breakdown at the same time that they're reading the information from the breakdown for the set and description sections up here. Additionally, the formula for this is a name in the same way that call and background count are a name. So if I just delete this cell right here and type in equals props, hit enter, I get all my data back. Because equals props is all the props that are called for on that call sheet. So now I'm going to walk you through the workflow for Casper. There's a number of different steps here, and these are essentially recommendations. This is what we've come up with as far as a workflow to make this work best, given the different tool sets that we have created in the software itself. So the number one step, and this seems fairly obvious, is you're going to want to import your breakdown from Movie Magic. Optionally, of course, you can just type all of this breakdown information into Casper if you so choose. Either way, the first step is to get that data into Casper. We're actually going to cover the details on how to import your data in another video. The importation process has a number of different steps, and it can be a little complicated. So we wanted to create a dedicated video to that subject, which you should definitely watch so that you get a better understanding of how all this works. The next step is that you're going to enter your cast data and your days data. And those are located both right here, the little blue tabs, cast. And this is just manual data entry. It's fairly straightforward. You just go through and you type in all your character numbers, your roles, and your cast names, and you're done with that. And then with your days, for each day number, days 1 through whatever, you need to put in a date. That'll be used mostly in the header information for each call sheet and production report, so that when you type in this is day 5, it knows, for instance, that that is on the 11th. Once all of your basic data is in Casper, then you can go ahead and jump into the Globals tab, and you're going to start putting in the basic global data that will be used. For instance, the show name. You'll probably start with day 1 for your shoot day, and the header information here for your call sheet and production report. You can also change around the hot cost globals if you needed to, budgeted daily work hours, and just all the different numbers you would use to calculate hot cost data. The next thing you're going to want to do is start creating your call sheet back. So you're going to want to click on your call sheet back tab. And for this, I've actually switched to the blank version. So this is what it's going to look like when you actually fire up Casper for the first time. We've put in the obvious job titles here, first AD, second AD, all throughout the entire show. Obviously, these are editable, and you need to create your own back to your call sheet and customize it to your show. So listing your producers, your ADs, your wardrobe, your art, I mean, all the usual stuff you're going to do. And it's also important here to know that there are lots of hidden rows so that you can increase the sizes of these areas. It is important to note that the production report back, which copies most of the data from the call sheet, if you're going to unhide rows on your call sheet back, make sure that you go into your production report back and unhide the same rows. This is important because one of the conveniences of the call sheet is that it creates all of your data and then puts it directly into the production report. But if you've hidden the rows in the production report, they aren't going to show up, and you're going to have data in your call sheet that isn't in your production report. So just remember, whenever you're unhiding rows in your call sheet back, always unhide them in the production report as well. Important little safety tip there for you. Now, the hot cost report. If your accountant wants to use this hot cost report in Casper, you're now going to want to hand off this file to them. And this is important because one of the things that's going to make their job really, really easy is if they get the time, now that the back is in, and this is the hot cost details worksheet, which is essentially the production report back with budget data in it. It's got the budgeted hours and the rate for each one of these people plugged in here, and that's what the accountant's going to do. They're going to put in budgeted hours and the rates for every person that appears on the PR back. And because that's sensitive data, they may want to password protect the hot cost details, which is fine. All you have to do is right click on the worksheet name, select protect sheet, and type in a password. Once that is password protected, only the accountant will be able to get into that particular sheet, which won't affect your work as an assistant director, but will allow them some sense of security so that rate information is not being handed around. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel that. Now, once the accountant has handed this file back to you, the file that they have given you is now your master file. This is the file that all of your day files will be a copy of. If you create a master file that is the same file from which all of the days are created, day 1 is a copy of your master file, day 5 is a copy of your master file, it gives you the freedom so that if you wanted to go through here and mess with any of these areas that already have formulas in them, you can just go ahead and type right over them, and it doesn't matter because the next day's file will be coming straight from the master file. It'll be a copy of that file, not a copy of the previous day's file, so that you would be handing down any errors that you created in the previous day's file into the new file. So that said, master file, and then a copy of that master file is your day 1 file. And now you have your actual file that you're going to be creating all of your day work for day 1. So you can start entering your scenes, your characters, start creating call times for people. This is the actual file you're going to be using that will be distributed to crew. So congratulations, you've gotten to the end of day 1, and now it is time to create your production report. So presuming that your second AD is creating the call sheets, and let's say your second is creating the production reports, the second AD, once the call sheet has been created and distributed, will now hand off that file to the second AD, who will take over that file and start putting in all of the production report data, wrap times, what scenes were actually shot, all the scripting notes. That file will then be handed off to both the production coordinator and the accountant, optionally, if they're going to be using the hot cost report data. So just to follow along once again, master file creates each one of the individual files. The second AD is creating the call sheet, who then hands the file off to the second to create the production report, who then takes that file and hands it off to the production coordinator and the accountant, and then that's the end of the chain for that particular file. Day 2 starts all over again, new file created from the master file, and right down the chain again, off into all your days of shooting. Now let's move into a few tips that can give you a little helping hand here as you move through Casper. These are in no particular order. They're somewhat random, but they're things that we think that you will need to know as you use Casper in your job. If you have a reasonable amount of experience with Excel, in this first example, you will be used to the fact that when you do a sum, when you add up a column of numbers, it will add up those numbers, but it will also add up those numbers regardless of cells that are hidden. Casper uses not sum to add up row data, but a function called Subtotal, which actually gives you the freedom to hide data and make it not part of the formula. So for instance, if I hide this row here, you can see that the total pages has now changed because I hid the rows with that extra line in it. This is not the same behavior you may be used to in Excel, but it's something that could really save you as you're hiding and unhiding rows so that all of your totals are what you're seeing, not just the underlying data as well. There's something to keep your eyes peeled for. On the call sheet back, all of the ones in the number column here are used to create the lunch count. So for instance, you can see here that I have 64 meals, and that's because I have 64 ones on the back of my call sheet. You don't have to use this system. You can enter in your meals manually. You can just type in right over these cells right here. But if you want to use that system and it's convenient for you, just remember that a 1 equals a meal in which you're entering. Also, remember at the very bottom here, the walkie channels only have the first couple departments here, and the rest of these just say department. So remember when you're doing your data entry to create your walkie channels back here, obviously each show is a little bit different. On the production report front, it's important to note here that a lot of data is coming from the call sheet. For instance, the scenes and the set descriptions are all the exact same scenes and set descriptions that were coming from the call sheet when it was created. But some data, for instance, which characters were working that day, is not coming from the call sheet. We did this intentionally because a lot of times who is called and who ends up on the production report are not the same. Someone is emergency called, or there's some reason why someone isn't on the production report, even though they might have appeared on the call sheet. It can get confusing. We just decided to make that a manual entry. So just keep in mind that things that are white, again, are things that are automatic, and things that are yellow is areas for you to type in. And just keep your eyes peeled for what is and is not automatic there. On the production report back, once again, just a reminder that all of your hidden rows should match your call sheet. You're really going to want your call sheet back and your production report back to have these same unhidden rows. And on this production report back, all of this information, the number, the title, and the name of the person, including their in time, is all coming off of the call sheet. So that's data you won't need to retype. Obviously, the out time, that is data that you'll need to type in, as well as meal penalty violations. The times themselves are a military metric, which is to say they are based on a 24-hour day, and they have a decimal place and then another number. And that number, as I'm sure you know, 1 is 6 minutes, 2 is 12 minutes, and so on up until you get it back around to 0. For the meal penalty violations, if you type your data in the way that it appears here, a number and a slash and then another number, the hot cost report will be able to read that data and actually apply meal penalty dollar amounts into the hot cost report. So just remember, it's a number, a slash, and another number, the first one being lunch, the second one being dinner, and you'll make the accountant's job a lot easier. On the Exhibit G, the appearance of the names here is automatic. These are the same names that appear on the front of the call sheet. The area here is yellow because you should feel free to retype in any other numbers that you want, and this system will still work. So for instance, if I wanted to add someone who didn't appear on the call sheet onto the G, I could just type their character number. In this case, let's try 13. And even though I have technically broken the formula for that cast number, I still get the cast data in there, and I can type in anything I need to for the rest of this. That's another really good example of why you want a master file and not having just copied the previous day's file, because now this cell has a broken formula, although it does get us to where we need to be. Now moving on to the hot cost report. This is the hot cost report. Has all the usual things you'll find on a hot cost report. It's important to note that the data for this is actually coming from the hot cost details. The hot cost details is essentially a copy of the production report back with budget information in it, but it is directly feeding the hot cost report itself. Also a quick note here about the budgeted hours and the rates. The only people who the budgeted hour and the rates are different for are the assistant directors. That's because they're routinely paid on weeklies or dailies and not hourly. So there is no hourly section here for their budgeted hours, and their rates are actually daily numbers, as we note right there. At the bottom of each one of these column sections, let me scroll down here so you can actually see it, there are column totals that'll give you a thumbnail view of what each one of these columns is doing to your numbers, and then of course it'll add it all up here together, and these numbers are the numbers which actually appear on the hot cost report. So that's it. So that is all of the general tips that we have for you, including the workflow and the general getting started section. We hope that you guys really enjoy using Casper. Please check out the video on how to import your data out of Movie Magic, as well as we're going to have other videos in the future that cover details on questions that you guys ask us over on our Facebook page. Thanks very much, and we hope you guys enjoy using Casper. Take care.